All right, everybody, and welcome to the 9 Years podcast with myself, Nick Draper, and the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deacons. And thank you very much for listening to the show this week. It is the Nick and Stu birthday edition of the 9 Years podcast, as it is the 5th of March when we're releasing this. Stu is turning 48 this year, and I have hit 26 again for the second year running. It's amazing how that happens. I don't know how. It's just one of those quirks of science. We can't explain everything in the universe. We don't know everything. Some people still think the world is a sphere when it's clearly flat. So, I mean, there's just no explanation in some of these things. But what we can explain is that on Sunday, the 7th of March, it will be one calendar year since fans were allowed in to watch AFC Wimbledon matches at, well, I was going to say at home, because we did have fans in at Charlton away, but they weren't Wimbledon fans, they were home fans only. So actually, yeah, it is a calendar year since Wimbledon fans have been allowed in en masse to watch us live and in person in the flesh. And Stu, it feels a whole lot longer than a year to me.
Yeah, I remember the game well because, of course, it was our birthday game. So I remember it home to Bolton. Kwesi got a late goal, didn't he? And we were down. We were sitting on the stand when we were down at end.
Yeah, disallowed, wasn't it? Offside.
Yeah, so I remember it well because you got my memory's terrible sometimes, but I think you do tend to remember your last game that you could do anything properly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's mad to think it's been so long. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch. I only watched a little bit, but the BT Sports film that they had.
Yeah.
So I've watched a little bit of it, obviously called Owls, and the BT. If you've not watched the BT Sports film before, they do produce some really good stuff. But they had some clips from us back at Kingsmeadow, the classic Cormac surfing and stuff like that, and you just think, wow, that's what it used to be like. I had to turn it off. I turned it off because I was like, it didn't upset me, but I was just like, yeah, I'm not ready to see that yet. I just can't wait to get back to, not that we're going to be standing because we're not going to be in the safe standing part, but it just makes you a little bit, I don't know, we want to get back to games, don't we?
Yeah, we want everyone back in, stadiums full, singing atmosphere, what football should be. And yes, I do remember very vividly that Bolton game with the disallowed goal. Ended up 0-0, and our last game at Kingsmeadow, so we didn't get the big farewell. But oh well, it is what it is. Currently, in 2021, we have had, we're coming into this podcast on the back of a decent point away from home against Shrewsbury, and we're going to be talking essentially this week. It's all about the football. It's all about how we performed in the past week, looking ahead to forthcoming fixtures and looking at the situation in League One. And we're going to talk about goalkeepers Anthony Hartigan as well. But to begin with, Stu, as I mentioned there, the point at Shrewsbury in midweek, Ayoub Assal with a late equaliser, the youngster coming on, knocking one in, possibly undeserved on the balance of play. I'll ask your opinion on that in a second. But overall, you look at the last four games, Peterborough, Gillingham at home, Hull and Shrewsbury away, we've taken 4 points from them, and I think that's a good return considering the quality of the opposition that we've had.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Gillingham one, well, all wins are important, but if you think about it, the Wigan was obviously that natural manager bounce, even though Wigan has done, have been okay after that. Peterborough, good team on that side. I think the biggest game out of the whole lot was Gillingham. That gave us Gillingham are a tough team, and you ain't got to look at them now, the results they're getting now. So it wasn't a fluke. But that's a big, Jack Rodoni's goal was massive because 3 points down. Hey, look, the league down where we are at the moment, 3 points is massive. If we didn't have 3 points down, it's going to be really difficult. So I think that's the big one. And it's a good return. But we've got, as we're going to probably discuss a little later, we've got some really big games coming up in March.
Yeah, March is a huge month, and we'll go through the list of games a little bit later. I would say, absolutely agree with you, Stu, the Gillingham game was massive, but you looked at those four games, Peterborough, Gillingham, Hull and Shrewsbury, and you would say, win that game to Gillingham, take a point from Shrewsbury and we'll be happy, and that's what we've done. It's almost being on par with what you'd expect from those fixtures. I mentioned a poor performance, perhaps undeserved point at Shrewsbury. I suppose it's never undeserved if you actually get it, but what did you make of the performance? Did the equaliser mask less than I don't know, less than inspiring display?
Yeah, it wasn't a great one. I know some people said after the whole game that, it wasn't a game that's going to define our season, but I did argue the fact that you can't turn form on when you want to. And I felt we went into Shrewsbury with a bit of a lag from the whole game. And to be fair, the subs made a difference. For Sal, when he come on, I didn't think he was the right sub to bring on. I'll hold my hands up to that. However, he gave us energy. He was prepared to run past people, and he got his goal because he was lively in that sort of side of it. But I wouldn't, if I was a Shrewsbury fan, I would be disappointed if if they come away from the point. Well, it was quite interesting. I've forgotten now who's standing in for Steve Cotcher, who we obviously got to say we hope he gets very soon. It's sad that he's gone back in the hospital. But the one who's standing in for them basically said on another day, the 2 offside goals that they scored, they would have got. I'm like, not really, it was offside. It was just such a funny thing of like trying to say, well, we scored 2 offside goals and we should have got a win from it. But they never upped their gear. I felt when they got the goal, they literally felt they could cruise to a 1-0 win, and they probably were right on that, apart from one occasion.
Was Sal, you say, wasn't the right substitution? Are we looking at a player that's genuinely in contention for a first team spot, or was it just a bit of a throw of the dice? Thin squad, injuries, no strikers. Just chuck him in there, have a gamble, see what happens. Yeah,
there's no harm. Matthew Cox also went as a reserve goalkeeper because we had the under-23 game down at Eastbourne. So, I think I always think it's very good when you can get them to go out and experience an away day. I imagine away days now are a lot different to what they were last season. I think Robbo said it. I think he won't be a starter, but he might drift in and out on that side of it. But we did have a very not a weak bench, but we had Palmer and Zach Robertson down at Eastbourne Borough. We've done okay. It's a very defensive bench, isn't it? That's the problem with it. But I think one of the things that I've noticed from Hull and Shrewsbury games is that our passing game has not been as crisp. We haven't kept the ball as much. We've gone back into some old bad habits of knocking it long. That Shrewsbury game, there was a number of times where we knocked it long from city areas, whereas before we tried to play it. And that's, to play a passing game that Rob wants to play, you've got to be confident. It's a good point. But we then go into Saturday's game. There's no easy games in this league. But you'd rather have an easier game than Blackpool.
And again, I'll say we'll come on to Blackpool in a little while. Team we did actually beat earlier in the season, got a 1-0 win against. But Shrewsbury, in terms of Kingsmeadow, it's a ground we've never got anything out. I think that's only the second time we've scored there. We've picked up a few draws, but we've never won there. So we'll take it. I think it's good character. So I think still from our point of view, you say they didn't push on after they took the lead, but we were still in the game. We still kept in the game and we got something. And that's, again, it can only be a positive, even as you say, if we're not playing our best, if we're not passing the ball like we should be, but we've been able to nick something.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think one of the things that's interesting at the moment is that, Robbo's, I think there's a lot of talk at the moment about processes, and Robbo's, outlined what he wants to do with the restart coach and stuff like that. But I read some comments on Tuesday saying that, well, the restart coach hasn't worked. And I think that's where we have to be realistic. A restart coach isn't going to solve the problem overnight. The restart coach will start working on set formulas and what you should do in certain situations. But if you look at the goal we conceded against Shrewsbury, it wasn't good in terms of there was 2 out for the corner. We had one on the edge. Sorry, there was 2 for them out in the corner. We had one there, and we had one on the edge marking the goal scorer in the end. And in the end, that decision was to send somebody else out. That's where the communication, send someone else out. And in the end, McLaughlin gets a track to the ball, plus and gets a free shot, and it's a good finish. But we can't blame the restart coach for that, because there are some situations where teams are going to adapt. They're going to change little things. That's where the players need to react to it. And I think that highlighted to me what Robbo was saying in terms of it's not a short-term fix. There are going to be some situations that we're going to switch off, and we need to be better at that.
Which brings me on nicely to the question of the goalkeeper with the Shrewsbury goal, because this has been dominating conversations on social media, and we'll talk a bit more about goalkeepers in a minute. Was Walker at any fault with Shrewsbury's goal? Was he too far off his line?
Hey, look, any goal you concede, you can put faults in. I've just said straight away where we didn't come out and we left a free shot. I know some people said he should be on his line. No, keeper's always going to be off his line from there to try and narrow down the angle. And if he hits a shot like that, then fair play. You can't. The difficult thing is you can't see. Obviously, there's no behind the goal shot. It's a one camera, but it's difficult. I just feel like any goal we concede now, we just over criticise. We keep saying he's for 60, he can't catch anything. It doesn't mean you're tall, you can catch things. It just means you're a bit closer to the ball than everyone else is. So I think we've got to get behind Walker, because at the moment I can imagine that, he had a clean. Let's be fair, he had a clean sheet. The problem is when we lose by 3, and that isn't always down to him. So I wouldn't put it down as blame. I think it's a decent shot. I think there's many things others you can blame before it comes to Walker.
You say he should be off his line there to sort of narrow the angle, but when there's so many bodies in the box in between him and the ball, does he not need to back off there? I can only think, in my head, my explanation was that he was off his line because he's expecting a cross to come in. They've played the corner short and he's still anticipating a ball to come in and not necessarily a shot. I mean, you've got so many bodies in the way. If he was not a few steps backwards, maybe on his line, does he not get a better view? Does he not get more of a chance to adjust himself to react and maybe get across to it?
Possibly, but when you got a free hit from there, then I think equally if he'd been on the line, I think we would have criticised him being on the line. If I'm being honest with you, you look at any goalkeeper position, they would normally come off and try and narrow down the angle. And if you hit a shot like that, then fair play. But I'm against. I suppose at the moment I'm probably against moaning about goalkeepers. At the moment I feel we're moaning about a lot of things. If you look at the whole situation, we're moaning at penalties. Well, I thought both were pens. If I'm being honest with you. And if you look at the error was, some people blame Walker, but you could see defenders didn't deal with it. So I know where you're coming from. I think it was a good hit, but I think we could have stopped the free hit if we had only come out and put one more person out to defend it.
Yeah, I think Walker got some criticism earlier in the season and social media had a bit of a meltdown about it, which I reacted to on our Twitter account as well. So I'm not looking to apportion blame on a goalkeeper. I'm trying to understand the thinking behind certain decisions, because for me, I looked at the second goal. So we had the 2 penalties against Hull, and again, we'll come on to those a little bit. The second goal was a mess, and Walker sort of was a bit slow to react, in my opinion, coming off his line. And it took me back to our interview with Mark Robinson when he got the job, and we spoke about things, and he made the metaphor about coming. Always come, because you'll soon learn how far you can go. And it seemed to me to be a point where he was making that point, saying, well, the goalkeeper's got to be a bit more confident in his abilities to come and dominate situations. Now, I thought he should have dominated. If I'm going to have a moan, I would say for that goal against Hull, I expect my goalkeeper to be clearing that out, coming for the ball, taking charge, just whacking basically everybody else out of the way. Goalkeepers are in a privileged position, because if an outfield player touches them, it's a free kick these days. So I thought he could have been there. And that's what I was thinking exactly as you're saying, that I was thinking then for the Shrewsbury game, he's come off his line because he's anticipating the cross where he can dominate, where he can come for a ball. And that's why I'm not going to apportion blame to him for the Shrewsbury goal.
Yeah, I think it's difficult at the moment. Is it doesn't help with obviously Connell Truman playing in Swindon, because people are now going well.
Yeah, what happened there?
But then, if you look back, I remember Connell Truman getting a lot of grief for not coming for crosses and being quiet. But then all of a sudden now we've got Walker making a mistake, but we're going, we should have kept Connell Truman. It's, if we had a choice, I'd have rather kept Connell Truman. We don't know what the situation was. We also knew that Walker was on potentially it could be signed for next season. And we've talked about we want to get a goalkeeper of our own. So we've gone along that. Whether it's worked out or not, I don't know. My gut feeling is we're probably not going to look down that avenue on Walker, but I've got a strong feeling that we're going to look at putting Matthew Cox potentially as contention for number 1 place next year. Simply on, and I'm basically making an assumption on what Ashley Bay said in his interview, when his next target is to get a keeper from the academy into the first team, and I think that was a big hint. I think Ashley Bayes has probably got a bit of good influence now this season. And I think I've got a feeling that Robbo's going to chuck Matthew Cox in next season. And do you know what? I would love it if we did that, because we've got to do that. We've got to stop losing these keepers.
Quick apologies for the listeners that hate when I divert onto other subjects, but I just have to throw these ones out there for a start. Ashley Bays. I've always wondered, Ashley Bays, is that a name that should belong to an American teen drama series? Just imagine some Californian blonde girl called Ashley Bays. Don't know why I've always thought that. Connell Truman, for some reason, I've always made me think of fish. And Matt Cox sounds like the tag team name which Joey Ryan should come up with a partner, if he can find one. But anyway, that's a niche reference. Goalkeepers, we asked on Twitter at 9YRS Podcast, who's your favourite goalkeeper been since we got promoted to League One? If you think we came up with having signed Ryan Clark and he started us off, and we've had many since then. In fact, Jim Hampshire retweeted us and listed the 11 goalkeepers we've had in under 5 years since promotion. Ryan Clark, James Shea, who came back in, Joe McDonnell, Nick Zanev, George Long, Tom King, Aaron Ramsdale, Nathan Trott, Joe Day, Colin Truman, and Sam Walker. We asked, apart from Aaron Ramsdale, because we figured that would be everyone's first choice, who's your favourite goalkeeper been since we've been promoted? And we got some interesting responses. We won't have time to go through all of these. But Baylor Hahn said, at Baylor Hahn 1, James Shea, he was one of our own. We've spoken about the using of lone goalkeepers. Rob Large agrees, definitely Shea, he said, at Golfman Rob. Marty Fullard UAE. George Long, solid, dependable and left-footed and tall, and always engaged with the fans at full time. In fact, sign him back now. And I think George Long, would he have not been present at Plough Lane on Saturday? Was he not on the bench, I think. I need to review that one. Shouts for Kelly Roos going back into the past as well before we got into League One, of course. Womble at AFC Don 1 says Long was better than Ramsdale in his opinion, which is an interesting shout. I believe Ramsdale was in, or has been in, fantastic form for Sheffield United over the last week or so, and they actually got a rare victory and a clean sheet earlier in the week. John Manson at John_M55 said James Shea, although I quite like Nathan Trott, who after the Lord Mayor show, I suppose, with Nathan Trott, he was having to follow Aaron Ramsdale. I'm not sure if the Lord Mayor show is the right metaphor there, but and Mark Hendricks, Mark at CIFF agrees with Long, closely followed by Shea. Stu, who is your favourite? I do have to agree with all the shouts that said we should have just kept James Shea. I felt it at the time that we let him go. I think our loss has been very much Luton's gain. I think he's very well thought of at Luton. He's playing second fiddle again to their new goalkeeper. I've forgotten his name. Sloker, I was going to say, but I don't think that sounds right. I'm going to double check it. But he's done well when he's come in for them at championship level, and he would have been a full-time. We could have kept him. We could have kept him to a full-time contract, and he'd probably still be here, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't have seen any reason to get rid of him.
Yeah, but sometimes it's easy to look back in hindsight. You know, we've interviewed James Shea, was on one of our radio shows, wasn't he, last season, and he admitted that actually it was probably the best thing that happened to him. Let's be fair.
Because he ended up at Luton. Of course it was.
No place you can be. But I think we have to. That's why I always sort of go, at the time it was the right decision. I felt, because Shea wasn't playing well, and I think he needed a fresh move, and that fresh move it's probably made him realise, you know, you've got to work, and you know, and he's a lovely character. But I think it was the right thing. I think he acknowledged that. So I wouldn't say, like I say, hindsight's a great thing. So I would say no, not with Shea. George Long was the one that I was really disappointed in losing. I would agree. George Long was everything we needed. And it's frustrating when you see him sitting on a bench. Not a bench now, is it? A seat. Not doing anything. But but it's all loans, isn't it? You know, I want to get away from loans. I've got no. I was always praising loans, but I'm now at a stage now. I'm like, no, look. We've got Ashley Bays is training an academy lot of keepers. Like, we are wasting his talent. Let's just put a kid in. Let's put a kid in and go with him.
Yeah. Simon Sluger was the name of the goalkeeper at Luton. Sorry. What are your thoughts on Nathan Trott, as we quickly mentioned there? Was he just unfortunate timing? We were all immediately comparing him to Ramsdale?
Following Ramsdale was just like, whoever followed Ramsdale was in trouble, weren't they? You couldn't get any different between characters as well. Nathan Trott didn't really communicate that much, but I thought he's, you know, good in the air and stuff like that. But I just don't think, I'd be true if I think whoever followed Aaron Ramsdale was in trouble. that sort of side of it. It's interesting what you were saying also before, like in terms of George Long was really good with the fans. Well, that's been a problem. There's been no fans this year. So we don't actually know, would Walker be better with the fans? Do you get what I mean? It's like, I've sort of heard people talk about Alex Woodyard and not be, but I think if you actually saw him in the flesh and saw that real drive, you would change your opinion. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's the problem, some side of it. But no, Nathan Trott, hey, look, he got a first team game, didn't he, for West Ham in the Cup? And I believe he's got a loan deal going in as well. He will be a good goalkeeper, there's no doubt about that. He's at the right club, but no, we just got to produce our own. But 11 goalkeepers in League, 11 goalkeepers, and he's got into League One, is that right?
Yeah.
Kelly Roos, I agree. I would have, I think we did try, didn't we? But look at him now. He's at Derby, first team goalkeeper. Still can't save a shot along the floor. Still got slick hair. But he's a championship. He was.
I get the point about the low shots, but I think the comment about the hair is a low blow. Come on.
Well, do you know what? It might make me chuckle, right? Football. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but there's two things that annoy me, right? One, no one can get a haircut. Like, I've had to put my son's haircut in for the 14th of April.
With all due respect, Stu, of all the people on this podcast who've been moaning about that one, it's got to be me, surely. Yeah,
but let me get where I'm coming from, right? So he's got to get a haircut on April the 14th because they don't open to the public, right? But you've got these stupid haircuts that are going around in the Premier League, like making sure they look good.
That is true.
And that annoys me. Like, you've got privilege. And then can I just have a moan about Jurgen Klopp, who's now moaning that his players have got to go to play in the African nation or something like that, and that they've got to have 10-day quarantine when they come back. Well, tough. Everyone else has got to do it. I'm just a little bit at a stage now going, do you know what? You keep moaning. You're in a very serious position. Get on with it. Stop moaning. Play football. Be done.
I echo those sentiments 100%. Final, quickly wrap up of the past week. You've said already the penalties against Hull. Mark Robinson said he thought they were penalties. He had no issues with them. He was more bothered by our defending in the lead up to them. I think we're agreed on that one, so we can move on. Very quickly, sum up for me. Shane McLaughlin, is he a right winger? Is Shea Alexander a left back?
You know what? I get what Robbo's trying to do, but I don't see why McLaughlin's a right back. We've seen him in centre midfield. And he's okay, but let's not put big old bush in it. You and I both said he's not. We wouldn't have kept him when he was in centre midfield. We commented about that, didn't we? But it was him getting moved to right back was the best thing that could ever happen. He's a great. I think he's a very, very good right back stroke wing back. He doesn't. Shrewsbury played wide. He played wide right of the three. It doesn't work for him.
Sorry, we have to say that wide right is a lot different from ride white. And let's move on.
I know, but it just didn't work for me because he's easier to pick up, and also Donald Johnson's done well at right back. But I think he's great if we need to get a point. But he's not an attacking full. He's not an attacking right wing back. So that's where you play your Luke O'Neill or your Shane McLaughlin. Do you know what? I think we're just putting people in at the moment to be solid. I get that, Robbo, but I think we moved a few players around that I probably wouldn't have. So my answer is no, he's not a right winger. Alexander, he can play left back. I don't have an issue with that. I'm glad he's getting more game time because I think he's got potential.
On that note, you mentioned because I was thinking of left backs, I was thinking Paul Osu, Mr. Gibbs Walker, also perhaps involved in that friendly you mentioned with Eastbourne Borough for the under-23s, in which Ollie Palmer got game time, Zach Robinson got game time. We drew the game 2-2. And I just want to say that after that, following that, news has broken. And since we've been recording, Ollie Palmer and Zach Robinson are in contention for the squad for the trip to Blackpool, accompanied by a very happy Ollie Palmer photo on Twitter, accompanied by a very angry Zach Robinson, who looks like he's posing to be in WWE or maybe boxing. He's got that folded arms, sort of staring down the camera, don't mess with me kind of look. So anyway.
Very quickly, something's rattling my cage of Ollie Palmer. Some people were like, he missed 2 chances. I was watching both games. I had the YouTube for the Eastbourne Borough, which, by the way, very good coverage, Eastbourne Borough. I'm really impressed with that. But he missed 2 chances. One where he cut across and side-footed it past a wide stick, and then one we got underneath it and stuff like that. But everyone was... I feel like Ollie Palmer's become a little bit of like, well, we really thought he was going to be great, but he ain't played. He's rubbish. And I find it amazing. I really do. We've got a striker that we bought in probably for decent money, and he hasn't been fit. And that's not always his fault. He obviously issues at Crawley, but we're not rushing it now. But like even when he went off after 45 minutes, I see social media going, "Oh, he's obviously injured," and I'm just like the negativity. Let's just give this person a chance. You can definitely see he's got the tools. Let's just give him a chance. I'm moaning a lot today, aren't I?
It's fine. You're allowed to. We're still all absolutely fed up of lockdown. So I think we're getting our moans out here. It's like a therapy session every week. The 9 Years podcast. I think that's what it's become. The person that we are going to speak about now is not in contention for the squad on Saturday because he's currently on loan at Newport County, and that is Anthony Hartigan. So we thought we'd just catch up with, see how he's getting on, because we haven't done since he was, surprisingly, I think we all felt, given time out on loan at Newport. So far in about 8 games that Newport have played since he joined, and he's not completed 90 minutes yet. A full 90 minutes. So he got like 88 minutes once, but generally he plays about 70, 75 minutes. He's had one sub appearance, and twice he's been a sub not used, and he wasn't in the squad for their game with Tranmere last time out. So we're not entirely sure if in terms of his improving as a footballer, we could argue about negligible benefits. I think there's more to it than that. I think it's helping him develop as a person, and throwing him out there and getting him to experience something different, to sort of grow and mature, and be good to sort of maybe come out of his shell a little bit, maybe. On the pitch, it's not going great. We can't dress this up. The South Wales Argus. Yeah, this isn't a quote from someone shopping at that shop where you can't buy things off the shelf. You have to go up to the counter and order it in the shop before you get given it. It's like the most ridiculous idea ever invented. No, the newspaper there, the Argus, says a player that has lots of experience despite still being young, but it says games have passed him by and hasn't really made a contribution as yet, although it does concede that the pitch at Rodney Parade is not making the most of his attributes. And I think that's part of the issue, isn't it? I think get him out on loan, absolutely. Get him to experience something different. Give him some life skills. But as a footballer, if you're going to send Anthony Hartigan to play on anyone's pitch, you're not going to send him to Newport Counties.
Yeah, and hey, look, it'd be interesting to get some. Hey, look, we've got to meet the manager on Sunday night with Mark Robinson, so it's a question you could ask. I don't think it's hey, look, I might be totally wrong, but I don't think it's a decision that Robbo would have made. I don't think Robbo would have sent him. And if you're going to send anyone, if you're going to send somebody anywhere, do not send them to Newport. Let's be fair.
Oh no, unless you absolutely hate them, because Newport is the worst place in the world.
Yeah, let's be fair. I know you said about
Watford aside.
Yeah. I know you talk about life skills, but there's a lockdown in Newport, and to be fair, even if it wasn't a lockdown, you wouldn't go out anyway.
No,
it's a place you don't really want to go, and we know about the pitch. My gut feeling is, and I don't know anything about, my gut feeling is that obviously we need to get money in for Dobson to bring him in for Sunderland, and we got an offer from Newport. We wanted an attacking midfielder, as a defensive for us. I'm not surprised the games are passing him by, because they probably are. If you're playing at home on a pitch that basically you can't pass on, Anthony Hartigan's not your player. We know that from when we play long ball here, don't we? So in a way, I'm glad he's not doing too well, because I think he'd come back. Robbo would take him. I think Robbo will use him next season, because Robbo was involved in the under-18s when he came through. I was fortunate enough to see quite a lot of games, and Robbo really rated him. So I think he will come back. Hey, look, it might be better for seeing Newport. He'll probably see things that I can't. Wimbledon and Newport. Let's be fair. How different can you have? You value everything around Wimbledon after he's been at Newport for that amount of time. So yeah, bring them back. It just hasn't worked out. But I don't think we have many offers, and I think we've just done that because we needed simply to get the money in for Dobson.
Enough. Right, let's look forward to Saturday. Blackpool away. Actually, before we do that, let's have a look at League One. Sorry. We're currently 21st. Yeah, let's have a quick look at the table in the relegation battle. 21st in the league, 1 point. So we're in the relegation zone, but we're only 1 point below Bristol Rovers, and we do have a game in hand. We have 2 games in hand on the 2 teams below us as well. Despite being in the bottom 4, I think the fact we've got games in hand benefits us and puts us in a stronger position than perhaps many of the other clubs that are down there. We still have to play all the other teams in the bottom 7. And of those 6 games, 5 of them are at home. So we've got to play Burton at home, which is next Tuesday. Northampton, Rochdale, Swindon and Wigan all at Plough Lane. Bristol Rovers we have to travel to. I know, Stu, you're not a big fan of that particular fixture. Mark Robinson said, do not think of this as a mini league. When he was asked in an interview, he said, do not think of it as a mini league because that adds extra pressure onto the players. But even in the players' heads, they must be thinking it. It's hard not to, isn't it? It's hard not to look at those games, especially when there's so many of them and many of them in such a small space of time that you are naturally going to think that. Now, whilst this advantages us having so many home games against so many teams down there, teams as well, we have to point out that Bristol Rovers are the only team to beat us of those lot. So we took a point at Burton, point at Northampton, and we won at Rochdale, Swindon and Wigan. So I think it favours us, surely. But the only thing, as I say, playing them in such a short space of time, you're not going to win them all. Just naturally, there's just no chance you're going to win every single one of them. So we just have to be prepared. There'll be one of the games will come a cropper in, and we just have to be prepared for that one. But otherwise, I'm pretty confident looking at those fixtures.
Yeah, it definitely helps that you've got the games at home. There's no doubt about that. If we were travelling, and we've done a lot of travelling to these places, and we've done all right there. But definitely them coming to our backyard is a good one. Hopefully, with Zach Robinson and Ollie Palmer being fit, that we're going to have a bit of a strike force. I think Robbo would go for those games. But yeah, it's interesting when you look. Like if you look at points per game, for argument's sake, we've got 0.85 points per game at home. Over the season, we were 1 point per game and about 1.4 away. But if I would say Bristol Rovers, and I'm not going to go into stats too much, but the Bristol Rovers away, new goalkeeper, and new manager. But their home record, they've only got 1.07 points at home, and we've got 1.06 away. So, there's some places, and the away games are not as bad because actually if you look at the percentage of away victories this year, it's gone high up because of that.
You're making me feel less confident.
I think you just have to be careful. Look, we have a massive, massive 7 days. There's no doubt,
I wondered where that was going for a second. 7
days or 10 days, Wigan at home, Charlton at home, Rochdale at home, Northampton at home. Massive games. Charlton going through an absolute nightmare. Lee Bowyer looks like I think Lee Bowyer won't be there next season, especially the squad they've got. But Charlton is a winnable game, massive winnable game. I wouldn't have said that before Christmas. So you know what, we've got a chance. We can't moan this season. We can't moan. We've got the games at home in the right time of the season. Do you know what I mean? But the league can change so quickly. If you look at it, before we got the equaliser against Shrewsbury, we were second from bottom. On Tuesday night, we get the equaliser. I think one other result went our way and we move up to outside of it. So we've just got to take one game at a time. But I know you can't win them all, but let's just win the 6-pointers. That's what I would say. What you don't want to do is you don't want teams like Rochdale, Northampton moving away from you. But just very quickly, one fixture that we've probably not put on the radar is Fleetwood at home. They play 32 games. We always say there's one team that drops like a stone. I think Fleetwood are that team this time.
They would not get a good. I thought that as well, but then I thought they got a good result either last week or in the week. I'm going to double check that one now. But I know we've always said there is always one team that drops, and I think we would have seen that last season as well, to be honest with you, if the league had not been curtailed in the way it was. I think last year it would have been Bristol Rovers, funnily enough, if memory serves me correctly. Fleetwood won at Lincoln. Yeah, they won at Lincoln on Tuesday night. It's a great result.
It's one result, isn't it? Lincoln didn't drop that. And then one thing I was surprised at, I've just forgotten his name, but he missed a penalty on Saturday. He was the guy that was at Scunthorpe and went to Fleetwood from Morris. Is it Morris?
Josh Morris.
Yeah, missed a penalty. He hasn't scored since October.
Wow.
And if you remember, he started the season scoring lots of goals, didn't he?
I always seem to score against us, yeah.
I'm amazed about that stat. It just shows you sometimes money doesn't mean you get success with people, does it? But I was amazed when I saw that stat and he missed the penalty and it was a rubbish penalty as well, but mad.
Looking at other fixtures on Saturday, as we're talking about teams around us, it's pretty favourable fixture list for us, I think, as well. We've got our own game with Blackpool we'll come on to, but Swindon are away from home. They're going to Accrington. Burton have to play Peterborough. As good a form Burton are in, that's Peterborough. That's a tough game. Bristol Rovers have to travel to Hull. Again, tough game. Northampton have Portsmouth. Rochdale have to go to Sunderland. And the only lucky ones are Wigan, who get Milton Keynes, who will probably smash them like 9-0, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's a decent looking fixture list for us if we can get something at Blackpool. Now, Blackpool, I think it's a good team to play. Mid-table, they're not going to challenge the playoffs. They're too far away from the playoffs. They're not going to get involved in a relegation battle. They're slap bang mid-table. Always the sorts of teams you want to play. Yes, they are in good form. I will admit this. They've won 4 of their last 6. They draw 1, lost 1. They got a 3-0 win at Charlton, like you mentioned, Stu, who are having a bit of a hard time of it. Lee Bowyer looking more and more like Ron Manager from the Far Show with each passing day. Best defence, not the best, but a strong defence. Only 2 teams have conceded fewer goals than them this season. I think that's Peterborough and Sunderland with 26, and they've conceded 27. And we beat them. We beat them at Loftus Road earlier in the season. Callum Riley scored the winning goal against 9 men, but still.
I was going to say, let's be honest. I think they will. I know you're right in what you're saying. Normally, they've got not going to go up, not going down. But they will want to get a result against us because I think they rattled them, the 9 men, even though they were sending offs. Yeah, I've got a feeling they want to do a number on us. I'm not really. I think with what I don't want, we can't afford to keep losing these games by big margins because goal difference will come into it. So if we're going to lose, let's not get absolutely tonked. And that's been our biggest problem. Once a goal goes in, our heads go down. And it could have been more the whole game. We could have lost that 5 or 6-0. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to lose a game, let's not lose it by a big margin because goal difference could be heavy. But I'm not expecting much of Blackpool. I
don't think we scored there since we've gone to Bloomfield Road as AFC Wimbledon. We pretty much lose 2-0 or 1-0 every single time we go there.
Banging by no fans as well, aren't they?
They were for a long while, yeah, they were, in fairness. I did laugh when their owner got given the boot and all their fans flooded back. I think they played Southend or someone, and they sold out the stadium. It was a sellout. I just remember social media going mad saying, Blackpool, their fans are back in. They're going to get full houses every week and they're going to be smashed. And I was thinking, no. In a couple of weeks, they'll just go back to what they were getting before that whole thing kicked off, which was about 5,000, 6,000, and that's what they've been getting. And they were just, this is their level. I always associate Blackpool with 3rd tier, and that's what they'll always be.
Just know, right? This is our birthday game. Blackpool away, what a place to go, an 80s throwback, isn't it? But I'm
not going Blackpool for my birthday, Stu.
No, I know. I'm just saying, I probably would have gone and stayed over because Blackpool was a great place. And I will say this: if we're in this division next year, that is definitely one of the places I'm going. Blackpool, it'd be a great time. Anywhere,
I want Lincoln. I'm so gutted that we have not been able to get to Lincoln away.
Really, that's the siren thing that they do.
Lincoln is just. I think for me, that's a fantastic away day in a great old school stadium. I was so looking forward to Lincoln. Of all the away games last season, I was thinking that's the one. That's the big one. And it never happened. So anyway.
Isn't that the last game of the season?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, let's hope we ain't going there for 3 points.
Well, yeah, well, we're not. We already know we're not going to because we're not going to get them. Final touches on Blackpool. Neil Critchley is the head coach in his first senior job, similar to Mark Robinson, spent a lot of time in youth football, coaching young sides. Liverpool, I think, was amongst those. Their top scorer is Jerry Yates, who used to own the chain of wine lodges around the country, and he's turned his hand to football instead, and scored 8 goals. Never heard of him before, to be honest with you. Jerry Yates doesn't sound like a footballer's name, to be honest. But anyway, that's by the by. Scoreline predictions, Stu. I'm going to go for 0-0.
I think we're going to lose probably 2-1.
At least we scored a goal. Right. Updates will be on Twitter at 9 Wireless Podcast. That is it. Some notes to end the show. Mark Robertson, as Stu mentioned, 7:00 online doing a Meet the Manager. So check out the club and the Don's Trust's social media pages for that interview. And Sunday Night Live will be broadcast on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, youtube.co.uk/9Wireless Podcast, immediately following that, reacting to what Mark has to say. Aaron Wilbraham is the current Shrewsbury manager in place of Steve Cottrell for the time being. And yes, Ayaba Sol did score on his first team debut, but Stu, as great as it was and as well as he did and as you've already complimented him right at the start for bringing energy, and he was following in from Piggott's header to get to the equaliser, we're just not going to go overboard with it. All right, he's a very young man. Just don't pile any pressure on him, because that's a very bad trap to fall into. Just let him carry on at his own pace and develop his own pace. Let's not be christening him the next Lionel Morgan or anything like that.
Yeah, we've got to be careful. Like, Robert's come in with pressure, fresh air, of course he has. But, hey, look, it's a massive March. If we don't, God forbid, if we're not in a good position at March, there's going to be pressure already. Because that's what it's been like this season. It's just been, we've all reacted. And I'm not saying we have all reacted. And what do you know what I mean? But hopefully by then we can meet. By then, we can't go to a pub, but we can meet in a park with 6 people, don't know who they are. Or you just go to Sainsbury's and meet everyone else. Anyway.
We can still go to Sainsbury's now, Stu. We could do that now, but people would dive out the way if you get within like 5 meters of them. Like, no.
I had a guy, right, saying this, like, how people make a wide, I don't know if it's just me maybe, but people make a wide berth of you when
God, yes.
This guy, right, I don't know what he can measure because he was like 4 meters, and I was like, do I smell, mate? Do you know what I mean? Like, thinking, that's like literally, I was on a path, and he cut across the grass that was muddy to get away from me.
I've had that loads of times, so many times.
It just makes you, any other time you'd be paranoid, wouldn't you? And now you're just like, whatever, make it over.
The one that gets me is when they actually turn their backs to you. Like there's like 3 meters apart, and it's like they actually turn their backs to face a different direction. It's like, oh, come on, like we're gonna.
Lorraine said to me, she goes, when we were going out to the supermarket, this isn't now, she's going, do you hold your breath when you go past people? I'm whatever.
Only if they're wearing a Watford hat and I'm biting my tongue.
Yeah, probably.
But on that note, thank you very much for joining us. That is it. We will be back next Friday. So all that is left to say is the usual. Alexa Bliss, bag first, milk last, 2 + 2 = 4. We'll see you again soon.